Good.
This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net. And today I'm going to talk about a subject that some of you might say, "Oh, I don't want to hear it. I just don't want to hear it. I'll never be thin. I'll never have the biceps I want. I'm just going to give into potato chips, pizza, and all those wonderful things that taste so good, but they're not good for me." Today, my guests are Alan and Angie Thomas, and I'm going to put a link on the show notes so that you can see the transformation that Alan and Angie have actually gone through and why they're speaking about healthy living. So welcome to Avoid the Maze, because we all get into that maze, and I'm sure you've heard that from so many people, that you get started and you get excited. I've lost 5 pounds. I've lost 10 pounds. Oh, I gained 15. What happened? So
Yeah. No, we get it completely. I mean, Angie and I struggled with our weight for decades, and a little backstory on us. We in 2017 we made the decision to take the weight off, and it was founded out of the fact that I'd been in the life insurance business for over a decade, and Angie and I both worked in that business, and we realized we never met a man who was over 65 that was more than 100 pounds overweight, and I had allowed myself to gain to over 300 pounds. Angie had allowed herself to get up to 188 at 5'7", which she never really had the level of struggle I did, but she was allowing herself to go up, and we committed publicly to dropping 192 pounds in 260 days, and we did that. But I want to stress one thing to everybody that's listening, and if you're looking for a diet, we're not those people, and if you're looking for an exercise plan, we're not those people. But in what we've done, we've kind of fallen into this world that we didn't plan. That we coach men and women, a lot of them morbidly obese, out of the struggles with weight, and we never. Our rule is we will never tell anybody what to eat, and we never tell anybody what exercise to do, because we've just never found it to be the problem, regardless of age. And we deal with a lot of people who are seniors, categorized that would be in the senior market, as we used to call it in the life insurance business. So it's I tell people, it's kind of funny you brought that up about potato chips and pizza and all of that, and it's funny, you know, I have a core belief that all food is good at some level, and it comes out of scripture. And I won't preach to anybody, but it's regardless of where somebody stands biblically. But it's Jesus declared all the food good. He just didn't say eat it all today, and so we, but from a standpoint of what it takes, it starts with the mind. And it's you mentioned about making decisions yourself, and it started with the decision. It didn't start with grabbing a vegetable instead of a bag of potato chips. It didn't start with any of that. And I want to say to anybody who's struggled their entire life, because there may be somebody listening, the odds are that 40% of your audience is obese or morbidly obese. It's just the stats, unless your audience are gym rats, and I wish I'm not one. And so,
me neither.
So every single person listening that struggles like that can absolutely, if I can do it, they can absolutely do it. And if Angie can do it, they can absolutely do it. And I can give you example after example of people who are worse in shape than we were, who have we've seen people come out of wheelchairs. We've seen people who have heart conditions and walk with walkers, cannot exercise, lose over 100 pounds. We've seen it happen. So there is nobody listening that cannot do this. Okay.
It's interesting. I think I was around 10 or 11 years old, and my mother's friend had a daughter about a year or two older than me. And we both went to the same pediatrician. And I heard that she was on diet pills to lose weight.
Wow.
And I was just starting to go from a thin little kid to this 9, 10-year-old who was very pudgy. And I remember going to the doctor and asking him for the same medication. Funny thing is, he gave my mother sugar pills, but I believed I was taking them. But I also did change my eating habits at that age. And it wasn't until many years later I realized it had nothing to do with the pills. It was about me eating better. And I wasn't sacrificing, like I said before, I wasn't sacrificing the potato chips. I knew how many I could eat without getting into a position where I was constantly eating the junk food and gaining the weight. Mm-hmm. The next time I lost weight was when my husband was diagnosed diabetic. And it was like, I have to help him. And how can I do that? I'm going to change my eating habits to meet his. And it worked until he realized that he could eat certain things that didn't affect his diabetes. So who started eating again? Yeah. Right here. No. But it is a lifestyle. It's not about dieting, correct?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's about acknowledging what we want to ignore. I mean, it really is. It's this, and I'll give everybody this test, this 3-point test that we give out quite frequently. It's number one. Let's suppose, regardless of what your religious beliefs are, I didn't come to talk religion, but let's suppose that the creator of the universe shows up at your door. Okay. And you go to the door, and once you see the creator there, after you pass out and wake back up, because the creator of the universe is at your door, you get up and you realize that the creator has another individual with them, and you invite them in your home. And it's like, what are you doing here? You come to, I mean, you'd have 10,000 questions that roll through your mind, I'm sure, but the creator of the universe says to you, he says, and I'm going to use your name, Karen. So just since we're talking to you, not
that's fine,
because you look like you're the perfect way. But the point that I make is the creator says to you, Karen, I want to introduce to you the Karen Hale you could have always been at this age, whatever age you are, whether you're at 29 or 39 or 49 or on so forth. Okay, whatever age you are, and when the creator introduces that person to you, I want you to tell me what the weight that version of you is. Okay, and you don't have to answer the question. I'm not. Um, but for all of us, just getting brutally honest about what that weight is. I think every one of us, regardless of what you believe, believes we're created for more than just showing up to a job 9 to 5, living life, and then watching Wheel of Fortune reruns. I mean, that's what we created. I don't care if you're 80, I don't care if you're 90, I don't care if you're 50 or 20, whatever. We were made for more than just being here. And so that version of you that was made to do all those things you've dreamed about, some of them you may have done, some you may not have done. What does that person weigh? Okay. Answer that honestly. And it's interesting when I ask that question of people who reach out to us, they'll tell me what they believe their ideal weight is. And I have no judgment over what ideal weight is. Ideal weight to me, to be crystal clear with everybody, is the weight that you are free. The weight that it no longer bothers you emotionally, physically, whatever. If it bothers you, then you're not at your ideal weight. Okay. And so let's suppose that weight is X. And then now the next question I'm going to ask you, because most people say to me, well, I don't know what to do. I say horse hockey, excuse my language, or whatever you want to say. You do know what to do. I've never met anybody that didn't know what to eat intuitively. Okay. And here's how I'll prove it to you. Now, I'm not saying that people don't need to get educated. I'm not saying that but we all have a pretty good concept. We live in a first world country. We kind of know what to do already. Okay. So let's suppose that there's a 50-pound gap between what you know you were created to be. Okay. Now, Question number two is, let's suppose that your family or the people you love most in the world, or your favorite pet, which sometimes people love their pets more than they do people. So and we get that. We have a furry person like that running around our house that we love, but not as much as our kids. But that's right. I know that's our
Please, our dog.
yeah. Yeah. So let's suppose that you get this phone call, and on the phone is the is a kidnapper, and it says that we have taken your loved ones hostage, and those loved ones, their life's on the line. There's going to be a really heavy ransom that you have to pay for them, one that most people will not want to pay, but they could pay. It said, in order to get your loved one back alive, you have to lose 1 pound of that. Let's say it's 50 pounds that we use every week for the next 50 weeks. Now, here's the catch. You cannot consult Google. You cannot consult a physician, a nutritionist, a dietitian, or anybody in the world. However, you have to eat something that you believe it with all your heart, whether you're right or wrong. Your nutritionist, dietitian, any medical professional would say, wow, that's healthy eating. And you got to lose that 1 pound a week for the next 50 weeks. 1 pound, just 1 pound. You're 50 pounds over, you got 1 pound to lose, should be a cakewalk. Excuse the food metaphor. Can you save your loved one's life? Every single time I've asked that question, Karen, I get a yes, a resounding yes. And so it throws out all the BS that people want to tell themselves. So number one, they're not at their ideal weight. Number two, there's 50 pounds difference, and they know they could save somebody else. Now, the third question is the hardest one. What's prohibiting you from saving your own life? Because
Very
we all,
important question.
and so when people get brutally honest about it, it's not the freaking diet. Do you have to change what you eat? Of course you do. Of course you do. I mean, it's like, I think of Sean. We were one of our clients, 400. He peaked almost 500 pounds. When we got to him, he was 452 pounds in a wheelchair if he had to walk more than 10 feet. Very successful in his career, but killing himself with one more bite at a time. And the only person to this date still, and we've talked to thousands of men and women, we've worked with a lot of people, and we've never met one except him that had never been on a diet whole life. Well, my rule, Angie's and my rule is when we take on a client, we refuse to tell them what to eat, because I believe that's where the problem begins, because we want to then blame the diet. We become microbiologists when it becomes a diet. Then we go to McDonald's and we forget our microbiology degree because we eat what we want. So Sean comes into our program 3 years ago, almost now, 2.5 years ago. And he says, but Alan, what am I going to eat? And I asked him that question about his family. He has 2 daughters that he loves and his wife. And I said, what would you do to save their life? And he said, I got it. I know what I could do. Now, this is a very intelligent man. This is no dummy. He's no dummy. He's won international awards with his company, a major employer around the world. And so he is no dummy. But you know, his answer to me was super wise. It almost sounded tongue in cheek, but it was funny, but it's true. He said, I got it. I could eat less. And I said, and that's eating less. I said, that's where you start. Now, almost 200 pounds later, out of the wheelchair, walking 8 miles, 10 miles a day, he's becoming an expert on him. It was never the diet. Now, did he have to get educated? Sure he did. Did he have to do anything? But it starts with a simple step that people refuse to take because, number one, they're not acknowledging the real consequences of what's going on. We always think somebody else is going to have the heart attack. We always think that, I mean, you know, and Angie, and I don't mean to monopolize, but Angie, speak to what and this is important for ladies to hear and men to hear who maybe their spouse struggles, because 50% of people that have heart attacks don't make it out alive. The first heart attack, okay? I mean, I used to wake up at night worrying about me. So
it's true. I mean, Paul, I had gained weight as well, and part of it is if you're in a couple, it's so easy to do. We do everything together, certainly meals and fun times, and it was really easy. I had, in fact, no idea what I weighed. I had not been on a scale in years. The few times I'd have to ever go to the physician for a cold or just something, it had to be really bad because I don't, and that just didn't feel like I ever needed to go. I was never sick, but I just would never get on the scale. But night, um, back to really the important part of this, it was that Alan, I was worried as his wife, and we've been together since 1980. So let's just say, it's my heart. And so as the weight, gained and it gained, I just really started realizing what would my life be like without him. So and it just kind of happened all of a sudden, I guess when he got closer to the last few years, with the higher weight, and give that last kiss at night, and then later I wake up and think, God, what if he's not awake in the morning? I mean, certainly he had a CPAP machine for sleep apnea, but still, that doesn't help everything. And so, yeah, was often running through my mind, and he didn't really realize our children's as well. While some are older now, we have 4 children, and he struggled with weight throughout most of their life. And so I remember one of our sons asking me if Dad just didn't care enough. And it shakes me up when I think about it. And I know I never told Alan. I never wanted to hurt him. And I wasn't the wife that was like, oh, you've got to do this and you don't. And no, and you look, don't eat that. But his mom did some of that. So I did I didn't know what to tell him. But the fear was real. It is real for
Yeah.
spouses. And and it's something to really think about. We think about, oh, they've got life insurance, and certainly we did and all of that, but that would not replace my love,
Right.
or for our children, their father. And
Well,
so,
yeah.
yeah,
No, and I mean, and I didn't know any of this. I mean, I didn't know. I was just kept going on and doing the thing that we were doing. And the challenge for all of us that struggle with food, I mean, it's one of our clients said something that was really prophetic. He said, when people have an addiction to, alcohol or drugs, they can lock their beast in a cage. When you struggle with your weight, you have to take your beast for a walk every day, 3 or 4 times a day. And so we get it. But when I'm talking to people, the thing I put, everybody expects me to ask them, how many trips they made to Dunkin' Donuts or whatever, or Krispy Kreme, and I care less. I already know they made a bunch of them. So, and it's not that I have judgment on that, but what I want to know is, what is the consequences to you? What are the consequences to your loved ones? What would be the worst part of your husband or your wife or your kids, knowing that you could have changed this when you did, but you didn't, and now you're not here for them, or they're having to care for you because I just lost a friend that I found out we hadn't talked in years until he'd already had a stroke. He had a stroke, and he was obese, and he just passed. He was. I'm 61. He was a year older than me. I mean, what's going to be the worst part for your grandchildren? Are they going to wonder why didn't granddad change or grandma change what they were eating? Yeah, didn't they love me enough? Didn't they? And we always think, oh, I'm at the highest I'll ever be. Bull. No, you're not. Nobody plans to get to the highest they are until you're ready to make the decision with it. And then you start thinking about, what are the long-term costs? What are the costs? Not forget about finances, but you can throw that into. I mean, for crying out loud. I know one of our clients. I think about Rick. Now this guy was another one that was a unicorn. I mean, it really was. He got on the phone with me. He had reached 388 pounds, and he's 70. Now, a man making it to 70 at 388 pounds at 5'10" is not normal. They usually are dead. But in fact, he'd already had a heart attack. Then he came in. We met Rick about just barely 2 years ago. Now, fused vertebrae, walks with a walker, so he can't exercise. Heart attack survivor, type 2 diabetes, on and on and on. Andy's 70 years old, and but we become really good at identifying markers that people can get the weight off regardless of the condition they're in. And he calls me the lunatic who said that he could do it. He came into our Rethink Dining program, and I said it's not going to be easy. I told him, I said it's not going to be easy. I said, but if you want out of this, I said I'll show you the way, and it's not your diet. I said you got to change it. You got to eat differently. You got to. I said exercise probably off the table for you, so it's going to be harder for you. I said, but I'm positive you can get there. Now 148 pounds down, and now it's taken him long. It's taken him 2 years, but so what? He's alive. I mean, he's alive. Are you kidding me? I mean, he's like the lunatic. He wrote a post the other day on Facebook. He said, some lunatic in July of 2021 told me to take a picture of myself because I would be sorry if I didn't have it. He doesn't look like the same person, but he's this amazing soul that the world needs. And he was eating himself to death. And he tried diets, he everything in the world to lose weight for 50 years. And until he made the decision, it never changed. And so, did he have to change what he eat? Of course he did. I mean, that's common sense. But we stand in front of our peers, we stand in our businesses, we stand in front of our families, and pretend like what is it? The nursery rhyme, not nursery rhyme, but the fairy tale about the emperor with no clothes. And we become the emperor with no clothes. Like when you look at my pictures of at 300 pounds, I mean, I was telling myself, well, there's somebody fatter. I created all these coping mechanisms over the years. I mean, we live at the beach. You want to see the fattest people in the world, go to the beach and you can make yourself feel good. We look for ways. What I would challenge everyone to do who's listening to this, who has a struggle with weight, is compare yourself to that version of you that the creator made. Compare yourself to that version and then start doing something about it. I mean, it's this thing. It's like somebody said to me the other day, a lady that reached out to us. She's probably a really good soul. But you have to be willing to do whatever it takes. Her doctor told her to go on a real low calorie diet, and she was kind of, telling me all these different things. My doctor told me to go on this low calorie. Now, this is a physician telling her, not me. I'm not telling her. A physician said I can't do that, and I knew immediately I couldn't help her. And it wasn't because she was beyond help. It was because she refused to acknowledge that she could do it. And she said, the doctor just doesn't understand me. He told me to go on a long calorie diet. I've got to have my sandwich or my potato chips or whatever it was she was saying. No, she doesn't. I mean, what a doctor was trying to do was give her life back, but she was unwilling. And the doctor didn't know how to solve it because the doctor had never been there. I mean, and she was complaining about that. We've been there. We know what it's like. But the challenge for her was acknowledging that she could do it if she chose to.
As I'm listening to this, 2.5 years ago, I started getting treated for an immune disorder, and the medications they gave me blew me up. But because they were blowing me up and the doctor kept saying, that's okay, it's the medication, I was eating more. I knew it, but the doctor kept telling me I was okay. Once we can take you off these medications, you'll lose the weight. And in January this past year, I called the doctor and I said, look, these medications are not helping me. We've been doing blood tests for 2.5 years. There's no change other than the fact I look like a chipmunk all the time and I'm overweight. And I said, so I want off the medication. He said, well, we can't do cold turkey. And I said, well, you know what? We're going to, and I'll take those chances. And it was that day when I looked in the mirror and I realized it's not just the medication. And I started thinking about
bravo for you acknowledging that. That takes a lot of courage, by the way.
Well, I realized that because now that my husband could eat ice cream, we were having ice cream for dessert. Not one night a week, but 2-3 nights a week. We weren't dessert eaters. And so when I started looking at that, saying, I like my ice cream, I can have it once a week. and I can make a small dish of it and enjoy it as much as that big dish I was making.
But one thing to get that I want to encourage you to see, and I didn't come on to fix you. This is not what this is about, but is
Sure,
to
I
see
know.
where it all where because we just met. I mean, we met 10 minutes ago, or
Right.
whatever it was, 20 minutes ago, whatever it's been. The thing to really acknowledge is it wasn't when you decided to lower the amount of ice cream you had. It wasn't when you saw that you were doing it. It was when you made the decision. The decision and you took responsibility for it because it's no different. It's so funny. One of the ladies that went through a program, she had gotten to 318 pounds, and this is a younger woman, and she's got her whole life ahead of her. She's a PhD. She's no dummy. Okay, she's and every time she got on the airplane, it was tears. Maybe she pushed them back because she had to wear seatbelt extenders. She had to go through all that shit. In fact, she allegedly, and I'm not going to say whether she allegedly borrowed one from an airline so she wouldn't have to ask a stewardess. She's going to have a ceremony of allegedly giving that back at some point. And so, but it was interesting. We walked her through the process that we learned accidentally that had nothing to do with how many donuts you have or how many. I mean, you have to change clearly. But she said it was so funny. She was down. She was down like 280. She was down probably 38 pounds, something like that. She said, Alan, I still need the seatbelt extender. She said, but it's the first time I got on a flight and I didn't want to cry. And so, but it was the decision. And then a couple weeks after that, it was so funny. Her husband, who is very thin, she came to one of our Q&A sessions we do with her clients, and she said, you know what I had for breakfast on Sunday? And she said, what? She said, I had a donut. I said, good for you. I said, you had a donut. Good for you. I said, you figured this out finally, didn't you? And she said, yes, because she'd been applying the principles that we teach. She'd been doing the work. She'd been doing the data piece. She'd been doing all those things. And she said, I realized that it's not about whether I have a donut or not. It's about the decision and all those things that went along with it and all of those. And she said, she's the first time in my life I'm positive I'm going to reach my ideal weight. It's just the distance between. It's kind of like when you decide to get out of debt, or you decide to you just any of those things, and it's always been available and it's sitting there waiting on us. And it's not this aloof thing that just the people who are in James Bond movies can figure out. I mean, what one man or woman can do, another man or woman can do. And I mean, we see evidence of it, and we've seen it in our senior clients. We've seen it in our clients that are younger than 40. I mean, I think of Adam, who I mean, Adam used to, every time he lost whatever a jug of water is, I think it's 13 pounds. Every time he lost 13 pounds, he would empty a jug of water and tie it around his neck on his belt that used to fit. And he had all these jugs, I don't know, 90 pounds, whatever it was. And he was not interested in relationships. That was just not something that interested him. Well, when at 350 pounds, he wasn't. And it was his way of protecting himself. But after the 90 pounds is gone, it was so funny. He sent us a picture of a wedding ring on a girl's finger. And so we have these secondary gains that we get out of our weight. We're able to protect ourselves. And for some people, it's protection from childhood trauma, truthfully. If we stay obese, we're protecting ourselves because then we have an excuse not to go back to that trauma. Or it's maybe we're unconfident. If I lose my weight, then I won't have an excuse for nobody really wanting me. I mean, and it's all these things that we use this protection that if I lose the weight and I'm still not successful, maybe it's really not me. Maybe it's really not the weight. Maybe it's me. And we use it instead of stepping into the unknown. And so
Interesting. And
but there's a lot of secondary gain to, and I'm not talking about weight. I'm talking about emotional gain. There's a lot of secondary emotional gain to keeping the weight on.
I grew up in a home, like I said, my mother was always on yo-yo diets. My father, until maybe his 70s, was a toothpick, and it was always a joke about the two of them. But My father was constantly reminding my mother day in and day out, he loved her. She was beautiful. And so as she gained weight, she heard his words. And when she looked in the mirror, she wasn't seeing that she had put on the weight. She was still seeing, that svelte girl who got married. And I remember her telling me a couple of years before she passed away, and I had just lost a lot of weight. She said, I hope you did it for you and not for anybody else. Because she said, all my life, I was dieting to look like somebody else. And, it made me feel sad for her that she put herself through that. But it's reminded me that it is about me, my health, and what I want to contribute to my family, as you've been talking about.
There you go. There you go. Because we'll always do more for others than we'll do ourselves. And Angie, I know you hit on one of her
Yeah.
hot buttons.
I often hear when I'm speaking to ladies that, or it is mostly ladies that I seem to have on my calendar. And the first thing, no matter if they're 50 pounds or 150 pounds, well, my husband loves me anyway. He's going to love me anyway. And that's true. I loved Alan at 304 pounds. He loved me at 188 pounds. But what are we giving up on not being our best selves? I mean, let's just be honest. He still loves me. He loved me at 125. And I love him. I love him at 175. However,
Go figure. She still loved me at
Yeah.
175, and
I
I didn't have to be 300 pounds for her to love me.
let's be honest. Life is easier when you're confident in really who you are, whether you're in the boardroom or you're in the bedroom. Okay. I mean, and everything in between, all the life, whether we're out biking, whether we're at the beach, we're not, looking, as he said, he's not looking for, oh, where's the biggest man on the beach? Let's go sit near them. I mean, when we go to the beach, we're very comfortable going to the beach, let's say, and enjoying ourselves. We're not thinking, oh, is my bathing suit? I'm not thinking, is my bathing suit covering up my big butt or any of that anymore? And it's fun. I mean, life's fun. I mean, we enjoy biking, and yes, we could have biked at our weights then. Probably we could have gotten the bikes that would have held us because they do have limits. A lot of the bikes are like 2.25. I didn't even 225 pounds, but we could not have gone and enjoyed the 15 and 20-mile rides. And we do that because we enjoy it. Yes, it helps our bodies, it helps our minds. But we happen to live in a gorgeous place in North Florida with a state park. And we often will see deer and turtles and bunnies. And it's just, it's just beautiful. And at our previous weights, we were letting all of that go.
Oh, yeah.
That's just one little example of how life's changed.
Yeah.
I've seen my son go through this. He moved to Dallas last December, and little did he know he had a gallbladder that was about to explode on him. But he couldn't understand why he was gaining weight, and he was not eating a lot, but he was eating the wrong foods, and he hadn't connected that. Having the gallbladder surgery totally changed him. He realized he'd been in pain for so long because of his gallbladder. He's not in pain anymore. What can he do to keep his body feeling good? And he called me the other day and he said, when my body's feeling good, my brain feels really, really good. And it does.
Yeah, the emotional the highest price we pay. Sure, do I want people to live till they're 150? Absolutely. Do I want them to be healthy, be able to move, all of that? But the highest price is that stinking monkey on our back. That one that cannot go away, that we wake up in the morning thinking about it, we go to bed at night thinking about it. In between, when you walk by a storefront and you've got a reflection, you're thinking about it. When you're at the beach, you're thinking about it. When you see somebody that you think from 20 years ago, you're like, oh my God, I wanted to see them, and on and on and on, instead of stepping in the version of ourselves that's possible. I know I think about Matt McWilliams, who if you guys follow business marketing and all. Matt's Matt's known as affiliate guy, and I'd listened to his podcast for years, and really understood that he had such a heart for helping like bloggers and podcasters and all create these affiliate businesses so they could afford to get their message out. But also knew Matt was almost 300 pounds, got to see pictures of him. And when I first realized that this was the it for my life, that I was supposed to help rescue people out of obesity, I did something I'd never done up to that point, and I've never done since, and don't really intend to. I cold called Matt. I found out how to get in touch with him. I said, "You want help with your weight?" And he became a client. And Matt dropped 88 pounds of fat, and along the way. But what was interesting is his client base changed too. He ended up doing he's ended up running one of Tony Robbins' affiliate campaigns. Doesn't get much bigger than that. All these different people, but it came out of this desire that he has. He was telling me, and some of your listeners may know who these people are, but he was sitting at a table with Amy Porterfield, Michael Hyatt, and Jeff Walker, which are pretty well known in the online world. And he was the only fat guy at the table. He was the only fat one at the table. They didn't shame, but it made him hold back. It made him hold back in his business, even though he was already successful, even though he was already doing things that were working. He was. It's like you put this governor on your brain. And when he got when the 33 genes fit again, all of a sudden Matt's business got even bigger. And so I want to invite people who are listening to this that believe it's just the health. That is, if you have health, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. I mean, I'm sure Steve Jobs would like to have his health back. We get Steve Jobs back, but that had nothing to do with weight. But I'm saying health is the most important. However, it's not the driver. The driver are the emotions. The driver are, how are you going to feel when you walk into the boardroom, or you walk into the bedroom, or you walk just down the street and you just feel good again about yourself, and you don't think about it. And it doesn't mean that people who are obese are bad people. They're not. I meet some of the best people in the world, but I've never met one that was really, really happy deep down with how they are. And it was, and I say this, and they're probably out there, and I don't, people say, "Alan, you fat shame people." No, I don't. I don't. I mean, listen, if that creator of the universe question at the door is it, whatever weight they tell me, I believe it. It's so funny too, Karen. We I'll have people that they'll fill out a form. I'll put what's your ideal weight, and they'll put, if I sense that they don't really buy it, that like they were filling out some BMI chart, which then I'll ask them that question. And I've had people raise the number above what maybe the doctor is. I said, I'm not trying to be a medical professor. I said, that's your it. That's the number. And it doesn't make us bad. It doesn't make us as good. But if you're not to the point where you could be, number one, understand that the people around you are watching. They're watching how you might be able to save your family member, but by how you handle this. And I'm not saying you personally. I'm saying just anybody listening to this. You might be. There might be another gear in your vehicle, so to speak, that you've never tapped. And while you're still here on Earth, wouldn't it be nice to know what your limit was?
I
Wouldn't it
love
be
it.
nice? And that's what this is about. That's what weight's about. We minimize it in our society now. You go into the. I mean, Angie gets she's
Magazines or
magazine. Yeah,
an email for a shot ladies line. Oh my goodness.
they're making obesity okay. And I'm not saying the people are bad. I am the last person to, and Angie's the last person to criticize. This is not about fat shaming. It's about people are watching though. They're watching. And if you're not stepping, and they're asking themselves, if you can't control your form, what else can't you control? It's an authenticity issue. It really is. So be aware that the world is watching, and we can't. And you can argue with it. 49 states in this country, there you can be fired for being obese. You know that. Michigan's the only one Michigan's the only one that can't. Go ahead.
And like everyone knows that it's more is caught than taught. However, if you look at the stats for obesity and all of that, you notice that children are now included in those
Right.
statistics because of home life, obviously. I mean, it just goes to show, I mean, that it's just being passed down. Not only are we accept because we are accepting it, but the danger for the children's health as well. I mean, like you said, you knew someone, you know, years ago. I mean, you know, they were even talking about it a few years ago, but now they're actually talking about, you know, surgery, you know, having surgeries and things for children and all of these new medications, what they're doing to their body, because it's sad and it can be avoided.
Well, we get a lot of clients who've had the surgery and they failed. I mean that's not a fix either. You've got to change the behavior, but it is interesting, and to give you some numbers that'll startle you. 650 million adults are obese or morbidly obese worldwide. 650 million. There's 8 billion on the planet. 350 million are adolescents or children. So that's 1 billion, 1/8 of the Earth population. That one person is dying from an obesity related illnesses every 7 seconds. Okay. So count off one, two, three, count it off dead, dead, dead. But that's not the biggest thing. Think about the potential loss. Think about the potential that's lost. Think about the human spirit that's lost. Think about if we could get those people back. Some of the greatest people you'll ever meet are people that are obese and just have never tackled that. And then when they get that, it's not about looking great in your skinny jeans. It's fine. I want you to look great in your skinny jeans. It's about what is this weight stopping you from doing? What does it stop changing in your life? What is and it's so simple. It's not easy, but it is so simple. And I know we tend to track people that have had gastric surgeries that have failed. And they said, yeah, I lost my hair, I lost my, there's all these side effects. And now with the drugs that are coming out, I mean, come on, people. I mean, put the fork down. Okay. And I say that from perspective of somebody who I love. That you don't get to 300 pounds because you don't like eating.
Right.
And so it's but it's possible. Be encouraged. Have a seed of hope. It is possible to get there. Whatever that
Well,
weight is that you think you want to be, I mean, that you can get there.
well, my latest journey started in January. I'm down 18 pounds.
Good for you.
I weigh myself every 2 weeks because I know how water weight and everything fluctuates, and I'm not going to get myself upset if I haven't lost a pound in the last week. I don't want to gain. And I've allowed myself to accept the fact that this is part of my life cycle. And that's
Yeah,
okay.
got it.
And
18 pounds is legit. Good for you.
when a year ago, when I was doing my podcast, I would not go back and watch the videos. I would listen to the audios because I didn't like the way my face looked. And I realized that it wasn't just going off those medications. It was the stuff I was putting in me. And now that I'm putting in things that are better for me, it's like I feel better. I don't have to eat as much, but I'm eating good. And that's the thing. When I look at the difference between what I ate a year ago and what I'm eating now, I could have been at that goal weight, but that's all right, as long as you're working towards it. And I think that's
And that's the key. I mean, every day's day one. I mean, you're never going to get that. Stop looking for magic pills. That's what I'm not saying you're doing that. I'm saying that's what people do. There's no magic pill. There's no mechanism that's going to allow you to eat what you want, whatever you want, whenever you want, and as much as you want. It doesn't exist. I don't believe it ever will, because it's no different than anything else. You've got to apply principles that make sense. I mean, they do. We already know. You already knew what healthy eating was before, but when a doctor says to you it's okay to gain, that this medication is likely to gain weight, it plants a seed in your mind that it's okay. Well, here's what it would have done for me. It would have said, "Oh, good, I get to have some more of those single serving sizes of Doritos that say family on them." So I don't know which small family, because I would eat the whole thing. But the point being is that that if it's working, you keep applying it. I mean, in the average person we talk to over a lifetime has gained about 6 pounds in a year, over their lifetime. So you've lost three times a normal year in this time. So that's great. And we've actually, I don't know if it's okay to do this, but we've actually got a gift for your audience if we can, whenever you want us to do that.
Absolutely. Sure,
Yeah.
tell
So
us.
so we've got Angie and I created a training. It's a free training. It is a real training. There's nothing to buy on the training, so don't think that they got to buy something. They don't. There's nothing to buy. But it's interesting. It's the 5-step strategy that we personally use to drop the weight, the 192 pounds that we released together, 129 for me and 63 for her in 260 days. And he walks them through a 5-step strategy. They can go to transformmyfuture.com/avoid the maze. Okay. So that'll be your audience. We create it for them, and they can click on it, and it's a training. If they just apply those principles, it's like we had a client recently come to us that heard about the free training on a podcast, ironically, and they lost 18 pounds in a month. Now they had quite a bit of weight to lose, 18 pounds in 1 month before they came to us. They said, and they wanted to reach out to us after that, but it was interesting just from applying those principles. It's not crazy. We're not going to give you a secret diet that only the secret people know. In fact, we hold to our guns. We will never give a diet. If somebody asks me for a diet, I give them the spelling of Google. There's a million
So,
of them. Most of them are good.
so how can our listeners find you if they want to get more information, they want to work with you?
They can go to transformmyfuture.com. It's got all that in there, and we're happy to talk to them. They can find shows a lot about our history, kind of what we've done, and we got a lot of client stories on there. But like I said, it's transformmyfuture.com. But the biggest thing is I want to leave people with hope. Be hopeful. We have seen some of the most hopeless people in the world drop over 100 pounds. One now is crossing in the 200-pound mark. I mean, we're obviously dozens and dozens and dozens, 50, 60, 70, 80, but be hopeful. And I know I think about, like, not everybody needs to lose 100 pounds. I know, think about Anne. She was she had about 50 pounds to lose, and she applied the principles that we train on. She's 69 when she started the program. She said, "I cannot believe this is working." That was the thing and I said, "Told you to work." I said, "I don't, hey, no." And she said, "I cannot believe this is working." And she reached her ideal weight of 134 pounds. And it was so interesting. But what was the real thing that touched us was she began stepping out in her life and some business things that she wanted to do. But the most recent thing, she sent us an email, and her husband had suddenly died, which was an awful tragedy that she was facing. And she wrote Angie and I an email that just said, "My husband passed. I didn't gain any of the weight." She said that I kept applying the principles. She said what we learned in the training that Angie and I did with her Rethink Dining training, she said, got her through that time in a way that was very different. So a lot of this weight thing, it's more than just weight. I promise you, there are things coming in your future that you can't see. You can't see around every corner. And I'm not saying you, Karen, I'm saying your listeners that you can, but you too, us too. We can't see around the corners, and you better show up. There's gonna be more required of you than maybe you've got in your tank right now. And so it warmed our heart to know that she made it through that time. I think she said she gained half a pound was the worst which, I mean, that's not,
That's
not
not
even,
gaining weight.
I mean, half pound, are you kidding me? I mean, are you kidding me? But she was so proud not proud, but so
Grateful.
yeah.
Because she said, she said, yes, I had a few moments of eating. She mentioned, I think, ice cream. But I didn't go off the rails. She knew her limits, and she knew that he would not want her to go backwards.
Yeah.
and she just kept applying everything she knew.
Yeah. And and hey, you're gonna eat ice cream again. You're gonna have a brownie again. You're gonna have potato chips again. It ain't the end of the world. Get over yourself. It's
And
like
make the commitment, and for us, we had a timeline. I mean, Alan knew when he would reach his weight. I knew when I could reach my weight if I stay true to course with what we chose, and and it works. And then yes, you have to always be mindful. But like you said, it's not like you'll never ever. And in fact, you may get many more opportunities to have to go out to that party or to be with your loved ones for another holiday or a birthday that you might not have even had.
Mhm.
Because like
Absolutely.
we mentioned, the heart attacks and things, oftentimes the first ones, we have a lady that
50%.
actually
Yeah.
came to us. She was only 49 years old, and she had had a heart attack the year before and was a single parent with two teenagers, and knew she needed additional help, and so worked with us. And she was a rare example of survival,
Yeah.
actually.
A lot of people, a
So
lot of people don't get a second shot at that. So yeah, but just be hopeful. I mean, be encouraged, but be serious. I mean, it's just like this. And Angie's talking about keeping. Let's say this one last thing. It's kind of like when you get pay off all your debt and you get an emergency fund. Do you have to think about, you don't have to think about money all the time anymore. It doesn't mean you don't think about it. You don't have to be intentional about it. But you don't have, if you go on vacation, you just go on vacation and enjoy it. That's kind of what it's like when you reach your ideal weight. And when
Sounds
you
wonderful.
understand it. When you understand it, it's not like this monkey on your back every day. So,
Well, I have to tell you, when I read your bio originally from Podmatch, my
mhm.
first reaction was, no, I don't want to talk about this. This is not something that my listeners want. And then I went back and read it again, and I said, wait a second. You're not promising anybody anything other than what they want. And what a difference, there are a lot of weight loss programs out there, and you hear them advertising on TV, and you get so excited. If I buy this food, I'm going to lose, 50 pounds.
Magic
And
food.
my husband's always been one of those believers. And I've said to him, you don't have to buy those foods. You can eat what you want. But when you go out to McDonald's at lunch because it's easy, you don't have to get the French fries and you don't have to get the apple pie. Okay. Figure out a way to enjoy that sandwich because you need a fast food sandwich so you can get back to work. And he has finally started using those principles because he realized he was eating the fries just because it was part of the meal. He was eating the apple turnover because his mother always told him, you have to end a meal with dessert. And now it's like, okay, I can do it differently. So I'm going to take your quiz. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to also share it on our website because I think it is so important for us to understand that it's about what we want and what we're willing to do to get there.
100%. You're exactly right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know we had complications in getting together, but we finally got together. Enjoy the beautiful day in Florida. I'm going to enjoy the clouds here in Northeast Ohio.
There you go. Sounds
Have a
good.
good day. Thank you. Bye-bye
You
now.
too. Thank you. Bye-bye.